All right, this is the notes 7.4 function operations. So today what we're going to do is we're actually just going to do half of the notes and then we're going to finish the rest of them tomorrow because I'm going to stop where we get to something new that you might have some trouble with. All right, but the first part you should be okay with this because these are all things we've already done. All right, so we're doing operations with functions. So we're going to have functions and we're doing operations with them. The operations we're going to start off doing are just adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. All right, to get a new function. All right, so what we can do is we can do addition with functions. So we can get a new function h of x by adding f of x plus g of x. So what it looks like is this. If we have f of x is 2x and g of x is x plus 1, then we can build a new function h of x by adding f of x, which is 2x, plus g of x, which is x plus 1. And since we're adding, all we got to do is really just combine like terms. All right, so we get our new function h of x, 2x plus 1x gives us 3x, and then plus 1. So our new function h of x would just be 3x plus 1. All right, so we can add functions together in order to build a new function. All right, we can also do subtraction. All right, we can subtract functions. So it looks like this is when we do it, h of x equals f of x minus g of x. So now we're going to build the new function h of x by doing subtraction. Now be careful with subtraction. All right, so we got f of x, which is 2x, minus g of x, and now I'm putting parentheses around this because we've done this before. We've subtracted functions or we've subtracted polynomials. We know that instead of subtraction, we change this to a plus sign and then we make these the opposite. So both of these, this positive x became a negative x, this positive 1 became a negative 1. Now we just have to combine our like terms. So h of x equals 2x and a negative 1x gives us an x, and then we got a minus 1. So our new function h of x is x minus 1. All right, and that was using subtraction. All right, we can also build a new function by doing multiplication. All right, so we can build our new function h of x by doing f of x times g of x. So we got h of x again equals f of x, which is 2x, times g of x, which is x plus 1. All right, so basically all we have to do is distribute this 2x to both, and we get h of x equals 2x times x is 2x squared, 2x times 1 is 2x. So we get our new function h of x as 2x squared plus 2x. Okay? All right, and then the final operation we're going to do for today is division. So we can create our new function h of x by doing f of x divided by g of x. Note that g of x can't be 0 because we can't divide by 0. All right, so our h of x equals f of x, which is 2x, divided by g of x, which is x plus 1. Right? Now, if I could simplify something here, I would simplify. That's all you really do when you're dividing is you just simplify. But notice we can't simplify anything here. So that's actually our answer. Okay? All right. Here we go. We're going to do some examples with this. So our f of x is going to be 3x squared, and our g of x is going to be x minus 1. We're going to find h of x, and this is the part you might have trouble with, is stating the domain. All right, because the domain, there's only two things we can't do mathematically that's going to hurt us. All right, we cannot divide by 0. So that's going to affect the domain. All right, these are things that will affect the domain. All right, so you cannot divide by 0. All right, and the second one is you can't do even roots. of negative numbers. So basically, these are the only two things that you really have to worry about. You have to worry about if you have division in the problem, and you have to worry about if you have any roots, all right? Or if you have a rational exponent that has an even number on the bottom. So if any of those two things comes up, it's going to affect your domain. All right. So the easy part first. We're going to do h of x equals f of x plus g of x. So we got h of x equals f of x, which is 3x squared, plus g of x, which is x plus x minus 1. All right, and we don't have any like terms, so we can't really do anything, so our answer would just be 3x squared plus x minus 1. All right, and now we're going to do subtraction. So again, we got h of x equals f of x, which is 3x squared, minus, now you got a minus sign, so we put parentheses, all right, x minus 1. Again, we change that minus sign to a plus sign, make these the opposite, so this becomes negative, this one becomes positive. Again, we can't combine it like terms, so we get h of x equals 3x squared minus x plus 1. All right. Now, we're going to state our domains. So the domains for the function that you have must carry over to this function. So our domain, in other words, the domain, these are the numbers that you can use to put in this function. So are there any restrictions on this? Well, when I'm asking you if there's any restrictions, I'm asking you, is there any division? Are there any roots? Even roots of negative numbers. So those are the only two things we can't do. So this doesn't have any square roots or fourth roots in it, and it's no division. So there's no restrictions. So to say no restrictions, you make this script R. That means all real numbers, means there's no restrictions. You can use any numbers. All right, and then g of x, we have x minus 1. Well, we don't have any division. We don't have any even roots in there, no roots at all. So that one, no restrictions. So all real numbers. So we don't have any restrictions on it. So when we did addition, that doesn't give us any more restrictions. So the domain for this one is all real numbers. All right. And then for this one, the domain, again, no restrictions there. And then subtraction didn't cause us any further restrictions. So again, this one is also all real numbers. All right, there's no restrictions on the domain. We can use any number we want. All right. Example 2. Example 2, this time we are going to be multiplying and dividing. All right, so this time we got f of x is x to the 4th, g of x is 3x. We're going to find h of x, and we're also going to state the domain. All right, so here we go. H of x equals f of x, which is x to the 4th, times g of x, which is 3x. So now we got h of x equals 1 times 3 is 3. X to the 4th times x to the 1st. Remember our rule. We keep the variable and we add the exponent. So 4 plus 1 gives us 5. So we get 3x to the 5th. That's what h of x is equal to. All right. And then we got division. So we got h of x equals f of x, which is x to the 4th, over g of x, which is 3x. All right, so we get h of x equals, now we can simplify here. Again, we have 1 over 3, so the 3 will stay. We have x to the 4th over x to the 1st. Remember what the rule is. We keep the variable, all right, that goes on top. And then we subtract top minus bottom. So 4 minus 1 gives us 3. So we have our answer, x cubed over 3. All right, now let's look at the domain. So the domain for this one, again, are there any restrictions? No. No even roots. Not powers, roots. So this one, no restrictions, all real numbers. This one, no restrictions, all real numbers. So no restrictions there. Multiplication, Doesn't cause any further restrictions. It's not one of our problems. So this one, all real numbers. All right. All right, this one we're using f of x and g of x again, but we got division this time around. Remember, we cannot divide by 0. So here's where we're going to have the place that's going to cause us to have a restriction. We have an x in the denominator. We got to figure out, well, what can I put in for x? What's going to give me a 0? Well, in this case, it would be 0 because 3 times 0 would be 0. So we know in this problem that x cannot equal 0. Okay? All right. So now you can pause the video and you can do these. All right? I'm going to continue on and finish these off. All right. But you can pause the video now and do them and then come back and check. All right. So this one, h of x, we got addition. So 3x plus x minus 1. Again, combine like terms. We got 3x positive x. So we get 4x minus 1. All right. No restrictions on this because there's no division and there's no roots. All right. So no restrictions there. No restrictions there. All right. And then when I did addition, no restrictions. So the domain for this one is all real numbers. All right. Next one, number 2, we got h of x equals f of x, which is 3x, times g of x, which is x minus 1. Here we got to distribute. So I distribute in there, and I get h of x equals 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. And there we go. And my domain for this one, again, multiplication doesn't cause me any problems, so there's going to be no restrictions, all real numbers. All right, number 3, we got h of x equals f of x, which is 3x, over g of x, which is x minus 1. And again, I would try to simplify this if I could. I can't simplify that. So that is my answer. All right, now, we do have a restriction. All right. What can't x be? Well, what will we put in there that would give us a 0? Well, if x was 1, we would have 1 minus 1, which would give us a 0. So that means that x cannot equal 1. All right? And that is where I am going to stop. All right? And then I will give you a homework assignment.